Very nice work so far. If you've made it to this point, we are more than halfway through, and now we're at step 4, styling with CSS. Okay, so now that we have the main skeleton of our tutorial done over here on the index page, it's time to make it look nice. We've added a picture and a link, but we can do even more with CSS. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. It's the companion language to HTML. And what it does is it describes what kinds of presentation rules or styles should be applied to the HTML elements that we've included on our webpage. So for example, if you wanted to make the text larger or smaller, you could do that with CSS. CSS allows you to change the way that content on your website looks. So this could include changing text color, changing the size of text, the fonts that you use, background colors, and so much more. I like to think of HTML as the skeleton, the structure of our webpage, and we create the structure with these tags. And then CSS is the skin and the makeup that goes on top of that skeleton to make it look nice. Okay, so we are going to add some style rules to our page in our style sheet. So let's go over to Style CSS. And you can find that over here on the left side in the file pane. And let's talk about what we see in this file. Okay, so it's totally fine if we don't understand what's going on here. We're going to talk about that now. So CSS is made up of style rules, and style rules have a certain anatomy or structure to them. Let's talk about how you build a style rule. Okay, the first part of a style rule is the selector. This tells the browser what element or tag you're styling. Okay, so for the first rule, we're styling the body tag, and for the second rule, we are styling the H1 tags. And inside of the style rule, you have the declaration block. And the declaration block is made up of individual style declarations that have a property and then a value that's assigned to that property. So for example, this rule is saying that all of the text inside of the body tag should have a font family of Helvetica. There's also Arial and sans serif, and these are backup fonts in what's called a font stack. So just in case Helvetica isn't available on that user's computer, then it'll default to Arial or any sans serif font. Okay, every style declaration ends with a semicolon, and you can think of these as periods in a paragraph that separate a sentence. So this tells the browser, hey, this is the end of this style declaration, and now you can move to the next one and apply that. All right, so let's talk about this H1 rule. The H1 rule, okay, I know that my PB&J smoothie here is in an H1 tag. This H1 rule is saying that all of my H1 tags should have a font style of italic, and I can see that here that my H1 is italicized, and it has a color of hashtag 373FFF. So you may be thinking, wait, what? Colors with letters and numbers? This is a hex code, and it's another way to assign colors in web design. And this hex code is basically this color and shade of blue. And I'll show you how to change to different hex codes, and we'll talk more about that in a bit. So if you're comfortable with what I've explained so far, let's move on and practice adding some CSS and changing the CSS that's here. Okay, so I explained that the color property here had a value that was a hex code. What if you wanted to change this, right? This blue color here doesn't really give me a PB&J kind of feeling. I want to change this to like a berry color. I went ahead and Googled a hex color picker, and I found one on w3schools.com, which is a great resource for anything HTML, CSS related, and just so much more. I'm going to link to this in the description box if you want to use it below. So I went ahead and searched for like a berry kind of color, and you can see that I have a bunch of different options here. So what's nice about hex codes is it gives you a much wider range of options when it comes to color versus just red, yellow, green, blue, your standard colors, which HTML also supports. They support up to 140 different color names, but hex codes just gives you a wider range. So let's say I want to apply this color. I can just copy this hex code, and I can go over here and just paste it in. Okay, so once you paste it in, you'll notice that it automatically gets applied here on the right. So I think that looks a lot better, definitely giving me more PB&J vibes. All right, what if I want to change the size of these H2 tags? Maybe I think they're just too large, or also maybe I want to change the color of those. Okay, so for my step 1 and step 2, I can create a whole new style rule. Remember, the first part of a style rule is the selector. This tells the browser what tags or elements we're styling, and in this case, I'm grabbing my H2 tags, and I want to change the color to maybe something, maybe yellow. Okay, remember it does support names, so I can go ahead and just give it a name as well. All right, so I like that yellow, but maybe it needs a little contrast. So I decide I want to add some background color to that. I can do that with the background color property. And let's say I want to play around with some different hex code values or colors. So purple is the complementary color to yellow, and I want to choose something in that family. So I like this kind of violet color. I'm going to copy that and go over here and just paste that in. Okay, don't forget that semicolon. That kind of ends your style declaration, sort of like a period in a sentence. Okay, I really love this. This is looking a lot more lively. Okay, how could I change the font size? I did say that maybe this is a little too large. I want to play around with maybe a different font size, so I can do that with the font size property. Okay, so font size, I can set it to maybe 22 pixels. Okay, looks good to me. I think the contrast is nice. And maybe I don't like how this image is kind of just right up against my link. It's kind of hard to see that link there when it's just pushed up against the anchor tag. So I'm going to select my image tag using the IMG selector, and I'm going to give it a margin of maybe 15 pixels and see if that maybe pushes it away. Okay, that looks better. All right, and to get a better look, remember you can always open up your web page in a new window to see what it looks like, and I'm loving this so far. Take some time to style your project. Check out the resources. I'm going to link to the color picker and more CSS resources. There are a ton of CSS properties and different values that you can set it to. The options for creativity are endless here. So take your time. I can't wait to see how you style your projects.